Welcome back, everyone. It is still April the 28th of 2021, and on the Hebrew calendar, it is the 16th day of IR 5781, and we are going to begin in chapter 19. There's only 24 chapters in the book of Joshua, and so I just skipped ahead a little bit. So the last chapter that gives anything about the way that the land was divided out is chapter 21. So, and this video will be probably shorter than the other ones because there's not very many chapters left. And then we will start in the book of Judges. And that chapter has that book has 21 chapters in it. So beginning in chapter 19, verse 1. So I feel like God is wanting me to tell you this about the vaccine. Yes, it is making some people very sick, and some people are dying from it, and other people are having no problems from it. But what you need to do is you need to pray and ask God what He wants you to do. He knows your body better than anyone, even better than you yourself, actually. So He knows whether or not it's safe for you. Just because I didn't have any real problems with it doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't. Actually, some of my family members got very, very sick from it, but I didn't. And my daughter actually had, my youngest daughter caught the coronavirus right before Christmas, and because I watch their daughter while she works a second job, I was there in the house when she came down with it, so I was exposed, and I didn't get sick at all from it. I had no symptoms, and her husband, who got even closer, he kissed her, which I thought that was, and whenever he was kissing her, we thought that she probably just had a cold or the flu. And so to me still, whenever you got a cold or flu, it's like, stay away from me. And I felt like that, he shouldn't have been doing that then, but he did it anyway, and I didn't say anything to him, but thankfully he didn't get sick either, and the little girl didn't get sick. So everybody's different. So you just do what you feel like God has given you peace about. Don't worry about what others are saying. So that being said, hopefully this will all be going away soon. Our governor is saying that very possibly all mask mandates by June 1st will be gone. Social distancing will be gone. We'll be back to full capacity. That's if we keep going the way that we are now. I'm hoping that does work out that way. So now let's begin reading in chapter 19, verse 1. The second lot came out for Shimron, for the tribe of the descendants of Shimon, according to their families. Their inheritance was inside the inheritance of the descendants of Yehudah. For their inheritance they had Beersheba, Sheva, Moladah, Hatzar, Shual, Bela, Etzim, El Tolad, Betul, Ramah, Ziklag, Beit Markabat, Hatzar Susah, Beit Lebaot, and Sharuchim, 13 cities, together with their villages. Ayin, Ramon, Eter, and Ashan, 4 cities, together with their villages, and all the villages surrounding these cities, as far as Bealat, Beir, Ramah of the Negev. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the descendants of Shimon, according to their families. The inheritance of the descendants of Shimon was taken out of the allotment for the descendants of Yehuda, because the portion given to the descendants of Yehuda was too much for them. So the descendants of Shimon had an inheritance inside the descendants of Yehuda. The third lot came up for the descendants of Zebulun according to their families. The border of their inheritance began at Sarid. Then their border went up westward to Maralah, extended to Dabashet, and onto the body fronting Yokneam. Also from Sarid it turned toward the sunrise to the east to the border of Kislat Tabor, went on to Dovrat, and up to Yaphia. From there it passed eastward to Gath-Hefer, on to Et Ketzin, went out at Ramon, and reached to Neam. Then the border turned on the north side to Hanaton, ending in the Yiftahel Valley. Also Katat, Nahalah, Shimron, Yedalah, and Bethlehem, which we know is Bethlehem. 12 cities, together with their villages. This is the inheritance of the descendants of Zebulun, according to their families. These cities with their villages. The fourth lot came out for Issachar, for the descendants of Issachar, according to their families. Their territory included Israel, Kesulat, Shunem, Havaraim, Shion, Anaharat, Rabit, which is kind of a weird, funny spelling. It's spelled R-A-B-I-T, and rabbit is R-A-B-B-I-T. I thought it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Kishon, Evetz, Remit, Ein Ganim, Ein Hadah, and Beit Posetz. Their territory extended to Devor, Shehat Zimah, and Bet Shemesh, and their territory ended at the Jordan. 16 cities, together with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the descendants of Issachar, according to their families. The cities with their villages. The fifth lot came out for the tribe of the descendants of Asher, according to their families. Their territory included Helkat, Hali, Batin, Akshaf, Alamelech, Amad, and Michelle. It extended to the Carmel on the west and to Shahor Livnot. The border turned eastward to Beit Dagon, reached to Zebulun and the Yiftahel Valley on its north. Then Bet Emek and Neael went out to Kabul on the left. Then Ebron, Rehob, Haman, Cana, and on to Greater Zidon. The border turned to Ramah and the fortified city of Zor. Next the border turned to Hosah, and it ended at the sea from Hevel to Achziv. Also included were Umah, Aphek, and Rehob, 20 cities, together with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the descendants of Asher, according to their families. These cities with their villages. The sixth lot came out for the descendants of Naphtali, according to their families. Their border went from Heleph and the Oak and Zanim, included Adami, Akeb, and Yavneel, went on to Lakum and ended at the Yarden. Westward the border turned to Asnot, Tabor, and went out from there to Hukok, reaching to Zebulun on the south, Asher on the west, and Yehuda at the Yarden toward the east. The fortified cities were Ziddim, Zer, Hamat, Rakat, Kinneret, Anamah, Ramah, Hatzor, Kadesh, Edrei, Ein Hatzor, Yaron, Migdal El, Horam, Beit Anat, and Bet Shemesh, 19 cities, together with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the descendants of Naphtali, according to their families, the cities with their villages. The seventh lot came out for the tribe of the descendants of Dan, according to their families. The territory of their inheritance included Zorah, Eshtaol, Urshemesh, Shaalbin, Ayalon, Yitlah, Alon, Timnah, Ekron, Elka, Gibton, Behalat, Yehud, Bnei Barak, Gat Ramon, Yarkon Springs, and Rakon, with the border fronting Yaphah. The territory of the descendants of Dan was too small for them. So the descendants of Dan went up and fought against Lashem, captured it, defeated it by the sword, took possession of it, and lived there, calling Lashem Dan, after Dan their ancestor. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the descendants of Dan, according to their families, these cities with their villages. When they had finished distributing the land for inheritance according to its borders, the people of Israel gave an inheritance within their territory to Jehoshua the son of Nun. According to Adonai's order, they gave him the city he had asked for, Timnath Serach, in the hills of Ephraim. So he built up the city and lived in it. These are the inheritances which Eleazar the Cohen, Jehoshua the son of Nun, and the leaders of the ancestral clans of the tribes of the people of Israel distributed for inheritance by lot in Shiloh before Adonai at the door of the tent of meeting. Thus they finished dividing up the land. Chapter 20. Adonai said to Jehoshua, Tell the people of Israel, select the cities of refuge about which I spoke to you through Moshe, so that anyone who kills someone by mistake and unknowingly may escape there. They will serve as refuges for you from the next of kin avenger. He is to flee to one of those cities, stand at the entrance to the city gate, and state his cause to the city leaders. Then they will bring him into the city with them and give him a place, so that he may live among them. If the next of kin avenger pursues him, they are not to hand over the killer to him, because he struck his fellow community member unknowingly and had not hated him previously. So he will live in that city until he stands trial before the community, until the death of the Kohen Haggadah, who was in office at the time. When that time comes, the killer may return to his own city and his own house, to the city from which he fled. So they set apart Kadesh in the Galil, in the hills of Naphtali, Shechem in the hills of Ephraim, and Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, in the hills of Yehudah. And isn't it interesting, though, that not only was Abraham buried, Sarah wound up being in the promised land, but her burial place is also a city of refuge. Let's go back to verse 7. So they set apart Kadesh of the Galil in the hills of Naphtali, Shechem in the hills of Ephraim, and Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, in the hills of Yehudah. Verse 8. Beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, they selected Bezer in the desert, on the plateau, out of the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth and Gilead, out of the tribe of Gad, and Golan and Bashan, out of the tribe of Manasseh. These were the cities selected for all the people of Israel, and for the foreigner living among them, so that anyone who kills any person by mistake could flee there and not die at the hand of the next of kin avenger prior to standing trial before the community. Chapter 21. Then the leaders of the ancestral clans of the Leviim approached Eleazar the Cohen, Joshua the son of Nun, and the leaders of the ancestral clans of the tribes of the people of Israel. It was at Shiloh in the land of Canaan that they spoke to them. They said, Adonai ordered through Moshe that we be given cities to live in, with the surrounding open land for our livestock. So out of their inheritance the people of Israel gave the Leviim the following cities with the surrounding open land. The lot came out for the families of the Kohati. The descendants of Aharon the Cohen, who were the Leviim, received by lot 13 cities from the tribes of Yehudah, Shimon, and Benjamin. The rest of the descendants of Kohat received by lot 10 cities from the families of the tribes of Ephraim and Dan, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. The descendants of Gershon received by lot 13 cities from the families of the tribes of Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and the half-tribe of Manasseh and Bashan. The descendants of Merari, according to their families, received 12 cities from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun. The people of Israel gave by lot to the Leviim these cities with the surrounding open land, as Adonai had ordered through Moshe. They gave from the tribe of the descendants of Yehuda and from the tribe of the descendants from Shimon these cities here mentioned by name. They were for the descendants of Aharon, and the families of the Kohati, who were among the descendants of Levi, because theirs was the first lot. They gave them Kiryat Arba. This Arba was the father of Anak, that is Hebron, in the hills of Yehuda, with the surrounding open land. But the fields and villages of the city they gave to Caleb the son of Jephunneh as his possession. Thus to the descendants of Aharon the Cohen they gave Hebron, with its surrounding open land, already a city of refuge for the killer, Libnah with its surrounding open land, Yatir with its surrounding open land, Eshtamoa with its surrounding open land, Holon with its surrounding open land, Devere with its surrounding open land, Ayan with its surrounding open land, Utah with its surrounding open land, and Beit Shemesh with its surrounding open land. 9 cities out of these 2 tribes. Out of the tribe of Benjamin, Gabon with its surrounding open land, Geba with its surrounding open land, Anatot with its surrounding open land, and Almon with its surrounding open land. 4 cities. All the cities of the descendants of Aharon, the Kohanim, numbered 13 cities with their surrounding open land. The families of the descendants of Kohat, who were Leviim, that is, the rest of the descendants of Kohat, received the cities of their lot. Out of the tribe of Ephraim they gave them Shechem with its surrounding open land, in the hills of Ephraim, the city of refuge for the killer, Gezer with its surrounding open land, Kibzaim with its surrounding open land, and Beit Horon with its surrounding open land. 4 cities. Out of the tribe of Dan, Elki with its surrounding open land, Gibton with its surrounding open land, Ayalon with its surrounding open land, and Gat Ramon with its surrounding open land. 4 cities. Out of the half-tribe of Manasseh, Tanakh with its surrounding open land, and Gat Ramon with its surrounding open land. 2 cities. All the cities of the families of the rest of the descendants of Kohat numbered 10 with their surrounding open land. To the descendants of Gershon, of the families of the Levim, out of the half-tribe of Manasseh they gave Golan and Bashan with its surrounding open land, the city of refuge for the killer, and Beshtra with its surrounding open land. 2 cities. Out of the tribe of Issachar, Kishon with its surrounding open land, Davrat with its surrounding open land, Yarmut with its surrounding open land, and Ankanim with its surrounding open land. 4 cities. Out of the tribe of Asher, Michelle with its surrounding open land, Avdon with its surrounding open land, Helkat with its surrounding open land, and Rehob with its surrounding open land. 4 cities. Out of the tribe of Naphtali, Kadesh in the Galil with its surrounding open land, the city of refuge for the killer, Hamat Dor with its surrounding open land, and Kartan with its surrounding open land. 3 cities. All the cities of the Gershuni, according to their families, were 13 cities with their surrounding open land. To the families of the descendants of Merari, the rest of the Leviim, out of the tribe of Zebulun, Yokneam with its surrounding open land, Kartal with its surrounding open land, Dimna with its surrounding open land, and Nahalah with its surrounding open land. 4 cities. Out of the tribe of Reuben, Besser with its surrounding open land, Yokzah with its surrounding open land, Kedemot with its surrounding open land, and Mephaat with its surrounding open land. 4 cities. Out of the tribe of Gad, Ramoth and Gilead with its surrounding open land, the city of refuge for the killer, Mahanaim with its surrounding open land, Heshbon with its surrounding open land, and Yazir with its surrounding open land. 4 cities in all. All these were the cities of the descendants of Merari according to their families. The rest of the families of the Leviim, their lot totaled 12 cities. All the cities of the Leviim, 48 cities with their surrounding open land, are to be in among the lands possessed by the people of Israel. These cities, each with its surrounding open land. Thus is it to be with all these cities. So Adonai gave Israel all the land which he swore to give to their ancestors, and they took possession of it and lived in it. Then Adonai gave them rest all around, according to everything he had sworn to their ancestors. Not a man from all their enemies stood against them. Adonai handed all their enemies over to them. Not one good thing that Adonai had spoken of to the household of Israel failed to happen. It all took place. So we see that when God tells us he'll do something, he'll do it. It may not be, it could be the same day. It could be within a week, a day. It may take years, but it will happen. So just never give up. Starting in chapter 22. Then Yehoshua called the Rephaiim, the Gadai, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, You have done everything Moshe the servant of Adonai ordered you to do, and heeded what I said and all the orders I gave you. All this time you have not abandoned your kinsmen, but have obeyed your commission, as Adonai your God ordered. Now Adonai your God has given rest to your kinsmen, as he told them he would. So you too return to your tents in the land which is your possession, which Moshe the servant of Adonai gave you beyond the Jordan. Only take great care to obey the mitzvah and the Torah, which Moshe the servant of Adonai gave you, to love Adonai your God, follow all his ways, observe his mitzvah, cling to him, and serve him with all your heart and being. Then Yehoshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went to their tents. To the one half-tribe of Manasseh, Moshe had given an inheritance in Bashan, but to the other half, Yehoshua gave one among the kinsmen on the west side of the Jordan. When Yehoshua sent them away to their tents, he blessed them, saying, Return with great riches to your tents, with very much livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, iron, and with great quantities of clothing. Share the spoil of your enemies with your kinsmen.
Most of the people that I know that have gotten that had COVID, the second shot,
So the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh returned. They left the people of Israel and Shiloh in the land of Canaan to go to the land of Gilead, to the land they were to possess, in which they already did possess, according to the order of Adonai through Moshe. When the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half-tribe arrived in the area of the land of Canaan near the Jordan, they built an altar there by the Jordan, a large impressive altar. The people of Israel heard of it and said, Look, the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built an altar by the frontier of the land of Canaan, in the area by the Jordan, on the side that belongs to the people of Israel. When the people of Israel heard of it, the entire community of Israel gathered together in Shiloh to wage war against them. The people of Israel sent Pinhas, the son of Eleazar the Cohen, into the land of Gilead to the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. With him were 10 leaders, one leader of an ancestral clan for each of the tribes of Israel. Each one was the head of his ancestral clan among the thousands of Israel. They came to the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, and spoke with them. They said, Here's what the whole community of Adonai is saying. What is this treachery that you have committed against the God of Israel, turning away today from Adonai, and that you have built yourselves an altar, thus rebelling today against Adonai? Is the guilt we incurred at Peor not enough for us? We haven't cleansed ourselves from it to this day, even though a plague came on the community of Adonai. Is this why you have to turn away today from following Adonai? If you rebel against Adonai today, he will be angry tomorrow with the whole community of Israel. If the land you have taken possession of is unclean, then cross back over into the land which belongs to Adonai, where the tabernacle of Adonai is located, and take a possession among us. But don't rebel against Adonai, and don't rebel against us by building yourselves an altar other than the altar of Adonai our God. Didn't Ahon the son of Zerah commit a sin in regard to things set aside for destruction, and God's anger fell on the whole community of Israel? He was not the only one who died for his crime. Then the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh answered the leaders of the thousands of Israel. The mighty one, God, is Adonai. He knows, and Israel will know, if we acted in rebellion or treachery against Adonai. Don't vindicate us today. We haven't built an altar in order to turn away from fallen Adonai, or to offer on it burnt offerings, grain offerings, or sacrifices as peace offerings. If we have, let Adonai himself require us to atone for it. Rather, we did this out of anxiety, because we thought, sometime in the future, your descendants might say to our descendants, you don't have anything to do with Adonai, the God of Israel, because Adonai made the yard and the border between us and you. So you descendants of Reuben and Gad have no share in Adonai. In this way, your descendants could make our descendants stop fearing Adonai. So we said, let us now make preparations and build ourselves an altar, not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a witness between us and you, and between our generations who will come after us, so that we may perform the service for Adonai in his presence with our burnt offerings, sacrifices, and peace offerings, so that your descendants will not say to our descendants at some future time, you have no share in Adonai. For this reason we said, when they accuse us or future generations in this way, we will say, look, here is a replica of the altar of Adonai, which our ancestors made, not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a witness between us and you. Far be it from us that we should rebel against Adonai and turn away today from Adonai by building an altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, or sacrifices other than the altar of Adonai our God, which stands in front of his tabernacle. When Phinehas the Cohen and the leaders of the community, the heads of the thousands of Israel who were with him, heard what the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the descendants of Manasseh said, it satisfied them. Phinehas the son of Eleazar the Cohen said to the descendants of Reuben, the descendants of Gad, and the descendants of Manasseh, today we know that Adonai is here with us, because you have not committed this treasonous act against Adonai. Now you have saved the people of Israel from the anger of Adonai. So Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the Cohen, and the leaders returned from the descendants of Reuben and Gad, and from the land of Gilead to the land of Canaan, and the people of Israel, bringing word back to them. What they said satisfied the people of Israel. The people of Israel blessed God and said no more about going to wage war against the descendants of Reuben and Gad and destroying the land where they lived. The descendants of Reuben and Gad called the altar Eid, E-Y-D, which means a witness, between us that Adonai is God. Chapter 23. A long time afterwards, and Adonai had given Israel rest from all their surrounding enemies. Isn't that awesome? They have been given rest for a long time. And Yehoshua was old, with age taking its toll. Yehoshua summoned all Israel, their leaders, heads, judges, and officials, and said to them, I am old. Age is taking its toll. You have seen everything that Adonai your God has done to all these nations because of you. For it is Adonai your God who has fought on your behalf. Here, I have allotted to you land for inheritance, according to your tribes between the Jordan and the great sea to the west. It includes the land of the nations I have destroyed and the nations which remain. Adonai your God will thrust them out ahead of you and drive them out of your sight, so that you will possess their land as Adonai your God told you. Therefore, be very firm about keeping and doing everything written in the book of the Torah of Moshe, and not turning aside from it either to the right or to the left. And the book of the Torah was those first 5 books that we read, which was Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Then you won't become like those nations remaining among you. Don't even mention the name of their gods, let alone have people swear by them, serve them, or worship them, but cling to Adonai your God as you have done to this day. And one of the things that I have found out is that when you say the names of the gods, you're actually calling upon them. So that's why it says here, don't even mention their names. I don't know if you have to say the name over and over and over to come out, but if you don't say it at all, then you're not taking any chances of calling on them, and they will appear to you. And the gods are actually demons that you're so and we know of the mythological gods, and those planets are named after them. We're not to say those names, and that's why, because they're actually demons. Verse 9, this is why Adonai has driven out great strong nations out of you, and it explains why no one has prevailed against you to this day, why one man of you has chased 1,000. It is because Adonai your God has fought on your behalf, as he said to you. Now I wonder if they were seeing angels coming out is the reason why one person could chase 1,000 people away, because the 1,000 were seeing all these many angels, and because in the 6-Day War, the reason why I don't have all the information in front of me, so I'm having to go from memory. But the reason why the enemy was laid down before them was because they saw all of these angels, and behind this few number of men of Israeli soldiers, and it scared them. Just go back and research that. It was 1967, I think. It was 60-something. It was called the 6-Day War. But that's very interesting. Let me actually pause this video and look that up and get that information for you. Okay, well, unfortunately, I can't find that information. But I'm looking on using my phone as for my search engine right now, because it's difficult for me to do that and on my computer while I'm actually recording. I'm not that technical to know how to do that yet. So, but I will definitely look that up again and find that out for you. So, starting at verse 11 of chapter 23, therefore take great care to love Adonai your God. Otherwise, if you retreat and cling to the remnant of these other nations, remain among you, if you make marriages with them and have children with them, and they with you, know for certain that Adonai your God will stop driving out these nations from your sight. Instead, they will become a snare and a trap for you, whipping your sides and pricking your eyes until you perish from this good land which Adonai your God has given you. Today I am going the way of all the earth. Therefore, consider in all your heart and being that not one of all the good things Adonai your God said concerning you has failed to happen. It has all come to pass. Nothing of it has failed. Nevertheless, just as all the good things Adonai your God promised you have come upon you, likewise Adonai will bring upon you all the bad things too, until he has destroyed you from this good land which Adonai your God has given you. When you violate the covenant of Adonai your God, which he ordered you to obey, and go and serve other gods and worship them, then the anger of Adonai will blaze up against you, and you will perish quickly from the good land which he has given you. Chapter 24. Yehoshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem. He summoned the leaders, heads, judges, and officials of Israel, and they presented themselves before God. Yehoshua said to all the people, "This is what Adonai, the God of Israel, says. In antiquity, your ancestors lived on the other side of the Euphrates River, Terach, the father of Abraham, and Nahor, and they served other gods. I took your ancestor Abraham from beyond the river, led him through all the land of Canaan, increased his descendants, and gave him to Yitzhak. I gave to Yitzhak, Yaakov, and Esau. To Esau I gave Mount Seir as his possession, but Yaakov and his children went down into Egypt. I sent Moshe and Aharon. I inflicted plagues on Egypt in accordance with what I did among them, and afterwards I brought you out. Yes, I brought your fathers out of Egypt. You arrived at the sea, and the Egyptians were pursuing your ancestors with chariots and horsemen to the Sea of Suf. But when they cried out to Adonai, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians, overwhelmed them with the sea, and drowned them. Your eyes saw what I did in Egypt, and then you lived in the desert for a long time. I brought you into the land of the Amorite living beyond the Jordan. They fought against you, but I handed them over to you. You took possession of the land, and I destroyed them ahead of you. Then Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, rose up and fought against Israel. He sent and summoned Balaam, the son of Beor, to put a curse on you. But I refused to listen to Balaam, and he actually blessed you. In this way I rescued you from him. Next you crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. The men of Jericho fought against you, the Amorite, Perizzi, Canaanite, Hittite, Girgashite, Hava, and Yebusi, and I handed them over to you. I sent a hornet ahead of you, driving them out from ahead of you. The 2 kings of the Amorite. It wasn't by your sword or your bow. Then I gave you a land where you had not worked, and cities you had not built, and you lived there. You eat fruit from vineyards and olive groves, which you did not plant. Therefore, fear Adonai and serve him truly and sincerely. Put away the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve Adonai. If it seems bad to you to serve Adonai, then choose today whom you are going to serve. Will it be the gods of your ancestors? Will it be the gods your ancestors served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorite in whose land you are living? As for me and my household, we will serve Adonai. The people answered, Far be it from us that we would abandon Adonai to serve other gods, because it is Adonai our God who brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt from a life of slavery, and did those great signs before our eyes, and preserved us all along the way we traveled, and among all the peoples we passed through. And it was Adonai who drove out from ahead of us all the peoples, the Amorite living in the land. Therefore, we too will serve Adonai, for he is our God. Yehoshua said to the people, You can't serve Adonai because he is a holy God, a jealous God, and he will not forgive your crimes and sins. If you abandon Adonai and serve foreign gods, he will turn, doing you harm and destroying you after he has done you good. But the people said to Yahushua, No, but we will serve Adonai. Yahushua said to the people, You are witnesses against yourselves that you have chosen Adonai to serve him. They answered, We are witnesses. Now, Yahushua urged, Put away the foreign gods you have among you, and turn your hearts to Adonai, the God of Israel. The people answered Yahushua, We will serve Adonai our God. We will pay attention to what he says. So Yahushua made a covenant with the people that day, laying down for them laws and rulings there in Shechem. Yahushua wrote these words in the book of the Torah of God. Then he took a big stone and set it up there under the oak next to the sanctuary of Adonai. Yahushua said to all the people, See, this stone will be a witness against us, because it has heard all the words of Adonai, which he said to us. Therefore it will be a witness against you, in case you deny your God. Then Yahushua sent the people away, every man to his inheritance. After this, Yahushua, the son of Nun, the servant of Adonai, died. He was 110 years old. They buried him on his property in Timnath Serach, which is in the hills of Ephraim, north of Mount Gaash. Israel served Adonai throughout Yahushua's lifetime and throughout the lifetimes of the leaders who outlived Yahushua and had known all the deeds that Adonai had done on behalf of Israel. The bones of Joseph, which the people of Israel had brought up from Egypt, they buried in Shechem, in the parcel of ground which Yaakov had bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver, and they became the possession of the descendants of Joseph. Finally, Eleazar, the son of Aharon, died, and they buried him on the hill belonging to Pinhas his son, which had been given to him in the hills of Ephraim. So that is the end of this reading. And just one little note that anything can be an idol. It doesn't have to be like a graven image. Anything that you put in front of God is an idol. If you spend more time on your job than you do with in the Word of God and spending time with God, that is an idol. If you spend more time in watching TV shows or playing video games or playing, maybe even playing on a football team or anything that where you spend more time doing that than you do being in the Word of God and spending time with God, that's an idol.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why God wants me to make these videos where I'm reading this, because you may not be able to read. So that might be, if you can't read, well, obviously you can't be spending time in God's Word reading it. So here you're hearing it. So and if you may not be able to, maybe you work so much that you can't actually have time. You could actually sit and listen to this, maybe on your way to work, on your breaks, on your way home from work, maybe as you're laying down after work, whatever. So you can still make time for God and listen to be in His Word. So, and if you're blind, you may not be able to I'm not sure if there are blind Braille Bibles, and if they are, they could be very expensive. I'm not sure, but you still, this way you have this information. So it gives people, takes away any excuse for somebody not being able to be in His Word. So, and that's His words to me to give to you, not my own personal ones. So don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, the subscribe, and the notification bell, so that you can be notified of future videos. And I hope you have a wonderful and blessed rest of your day. Bye-bye.